we've had a really rich discussion over the last year plus. So the role of the Planning Commission, the Commerce Department, the PAC, all of their partners have been really fantastic, supportive, and creative in guiding this strategy. So much of this work is thanks to them. I'd also like to note while we're getting set up here that industry does matter and it does actually create jobs. My office grew by one. So just by doing this study, we created a job. The beneficiary of the job is Brian Lobel, who's sitting in the back. We hired him from Los Angeles to help lead the study. Our boot camp, Welcome to Philadelphia, was go out and see all the industrial districts. So that's what he spent his first couple months doing with a host of other people. But let me give you some background on what we were asked to do, the land aspect of this, and how it matches with some of the market considerations that came up. But just as a side note, this picture is a little hard to see because it's light in here. I took this in the Business SolWorks, the very place that Rima was talking about. I managed to talk my way into one of the rooms that you can't get into normally. There's still a handful of people who work here. They're making solids. So even at a first glance, and it was one of our challenges when we did this survey, if something looks vacant, it doesn't necessarily mean it is. So we had Prima talked a lot about the industry of yesteryear, the traditional manufacturing. We've done this quick collage. It just sort of got to some of the unique things that were made here in the 20s and 30s. But of course, what a lot of people don't realize is that industry has evolved. But this is what we're faced with in terms of challenges. And it was some of the first things that I thought about when we were hired to do this study. We typically do neighborhood plans in a lot of areas that abut industrial districts where there is a fair amount of vacancy. I had, I think, a lot of the same impressions that many others had, particularly if you come into the city via Amtrak and you start to see properties like this. So the vacancy is something, a perception that we had to overcome, and we really had to understand exactly how much we had in the city. What kind of vacancy are we really talking about? And it's everything from land to the sort of the hulking buildings that Prima was talking about. So industry has evolved. It's not something that a lot of people are aware of. We're making less bullets. We're doing more food processing. A lot of this has been talked about before. And that's a great thing for the city. And if we ask people, when you think of industry in the city, what do you think of? Tasty cake often comes to mind. But also what we think of now is a large focus on distribution, which again had been mentioned already. It's important to note that a lot of the industrial use in Philadelphia is small industrial. So whether it's a room the size of this one, or these are some small-scale wholesalers that's about a block from my office. They are scattered throughout the city, so it's something that's unique and important to Philadelphia. But there's also these former industrial buildings. Some of them, yes, are vacant, but some of them have also been reused for industry, light industrial uses, artisanal. So these are all unique factors that we're trying to incorporate into the plan and think about as part of the land strategy. But when it comes right down to it, when we think about modern industrial uses, this was an image I think Prima just showed. The modern industrial uses, their implications on the land side are a lot more extreme than they were 60, 70 years ago, for all of the reasons that have been talked about so far. So we're talking about larger pieces of land, more extreme pressure in terms of how do we use that land and how do we bring modern industrial to the city. So in addition to thinking of ways to reuse our older buildings and basically support small industries throughout the city, how do we bring modern industrial uses, new modern industrial uses to the city? Well, in order to do that, we have to know what we have. And that was really where we stepped into the study. We were kind of lead investigators in terms of going out into the city and figuring out how is the land currently used and what are our opportunities. So as Prima mentioned, and John as well, Teresa Lynch and ICIC indicated, there is market potential in Philadelphia, but to meet that potential, we need land to support it. So we went out in the car, and as I said, we sent Brian and many others out in the car to take down a lot of information. It's about 20% of the city that we surveyed. And that 20% of the city was focused in 15 different industrial districts. And basically, for those that are GIS geeks, we put GIS on a laptop and we put it in the car, so we could basically set up the database as we were doing the survey work. When Brian or I or others couldn't figure out how a building was used just by looking at it from the car, we got out of the car. Sometimes we looked in windows we shouldn't have. There are a lot of investigative reporting. we still have a category. There are some properties in the city we honestly still don't know how to use. We've tried our best, but it's a very, very small percentage of what we require. In terms of what we collected, this was also a really rich discussion because when you survey about 20% of the city, you don't want to do it again. You want to make sure you get it right the first time. You want to make sure you're making everyone happy when you do it the first time. So we talked with the Planning Commission and PIDC. What is it we should collect? How should we collect it? How should we even record it so that it works with some of what the city is doing in terms of their BRT codes and other things that they're working with? This is just kind of a list of some of the main things that we collected, but we did everything from primary and secondary use, which is important if you have a big industrial site. If a portion of that site is vacant, we can actually mark it as vacant. 70% is manufacturing, 30% is vacant. You're able to capture some sense of vacancy by looking at what we call flex space. We also noted the number of stories. Was it fenced? What's the first floor height, approximately? How many parking spaces does it have? Loading docks? So we wanted to get as much of a database together as possible.